Commentary today comes from Martin Brundle and David Croft.
Hola to you all, welcome along to the Circuit de Catalunya, welcome along to the Spanish Grand Prix and round 5 of the Formula One World Championship in 2016, and for the 4th consecutive year it's a Mercedes front row lockout here this afternoon. But for the first time in 3 races, it's Lewis Hamilton on pole. Is this where the defending champion restarts his championship challenge? After watching his teammate dominate the first 4 races of the season, can Hamilton get a decent start from pole position that he didn't do in Australia or Bahrain, and go on to take a race that has been won from pole position at 19 times in the past 25 years? It's a track that is 2.89 miles long. It's where the teams come testing in winter, and every single driver knows it like the back of their hand. It is also extremely difficult to try and overtake here. There's a chance in the DRS zone down into turn 1. There's a chance down into turn 10 as well if you are brave enough and you are late enough. And Martin Brundle, it could be a very strategic afternoon, but it could also be one that rewards the drivers who, well, are the bravest.
Drivers who need to make an impression today, drivers who must score some World Championship points. Fastest in the long runs in practice were Ferrari. They used a lot of DRS during those runs, it must be said, so it's a little bit artificial. That's the rear wing open, of course. And then, of course, they went into qualifying and the track was 44 degrees and they were nowhere, the back end sliding all over the place. And it's 40 out there now, so will Ferrari have found a way with the controls on their steering wheel that they're allowed to change? That's about it. The differential and bits and pieces like that, some tyre pressures, because they've been in Parc Ferme and they can't change anything else.
Let's look at the grid then. Lewis Hamilton ahead of Nico Rosberg, all Mercedes front row. Then it's Daniel Ricciardo and his new teammate Max Verstappen for Red Bull on row 2. Kimi Raikkonen out-qualifies Sebastian Vettel on the 3rd row of the grid, all Ferrari. And then we have Valtteri Bottas for Williams ahead of Carlos Sainz, 2nd year in a row. He's been in the top 8 here in Spain. Sergio Perez ahead of Fernando Alonso. McLaren back in the top 10, qualifying in Q3 for the first time with a Honda engine. Nico Hülkenberg has Jenson Button for company just outside of the top 10. And then it's Daniil Kvyat now at Toro Rosso alongside Romain Grosjean for Haas. Kevin Magnussen got a Renault out of Q1 for the first time since Australia. He keeps Esteban Gutierrez company, and then comes Magnussen's teammate Jolyon Palmer ahead of Felipe Massa. The big shock at Williams and knocked out in Q1. Marcus Ericsson once again the lead Sauber driver on the grid, and the back row Pascal Wehrlein now making it 3-2 in the qualifying head-to-head with Rio Haryanto alongside him. And it's a long run here down into turn 1. Can Max Verstappen do what Fernando Alonso did in 2011 from 4th on the grid, lead into turn 1? He'll get a decent tow, maybe behind one of the Mercedes, maybe behind his teammate Martin Brundle, and we know this guy doesn't need a second invitation to overtake.
He won't be shy when he gets there, that's without doubt. We know that Lewis had a mighty start, the best on the grid in China when he was at the back, and all that did is took him straight to an errant Sauber in turn 2, unfortunately, which cost him even more pain. But we know with the single clutch this year, it is harder to get these cars away. It does require more control from the driver, much more finesse under extreme pressure. You can practice as many times as you like at the end of the pit lane, but when the adrenaline's running and flowing and others are around you, you're trying to react to everything going on, it's not quite so easy to release that clutch pedal in the perfect way and at the same time apply just enough power without lighting up the rear tyres. And then getting into 2nd gear before you hit the limiter. There's an awful lot going on for the drivers this year on the start.
We've had an awful lot of different tyre strategies this year as well. We're not going to get that necessarily in the first stint this afternoon. Every single driver is starting on the soft compound tyre except Rio Haryanto, starting from 22nd on the grid. Manor are going to do something different with him. It's soft tyres on for the rest. They can use the hard or the medium tyre as well, but they've all gone for these soft compound tyres. And I assume, Martin, because the last thing they want to do is get off the grid slowly. They need that extra grip. They don't want to be overtaken on the run down to turn 1.
It does give them a couple of metres. The cars are 4 metres long. If you get a good start on the softer tyres, look at the heat haze coming off those cars now as they get ever hotter sitting there. They're just waiting for the nod to go. And
there it is.
There it is. And it seemed a long time, didn't it? And just the residual oil that's sitting in the turbochargers, that's not too alarming when they just move away. It's if they're out on track, as we saw with Sebastian Vettel earlier on in the season in Bahrain, when it keeps smoking, you've got yourself a problem.
Now, you mentioned Ferrari and their troubles in qualifying yesterday. Sergio Marchionne, the big boss at Ferrari, talking about an out-of-body experience, saying that basically we set the car up for Friday. We didn't take into account the difference in track temperatures. And he said it's going to be a very difficult race today. As you mentioned, Martin, 40 degrees the track temperature. Trying to keep those tyres cool and within the working window seems to be something that Ferrari are anticipating being a massive struggle. And for Sebastian Vettel and for Kimi Raikkonen, already quite a long way adrift in the Drivers' Championship, that's not what they want to be hearing.
Well, it's surprising because we knew the sun was shining heavily yesterday and the track would just keep heating up. Everybody knows how temperature sensitive this surface is. It's quite an old surface now, and you get just this emulsion on the top of the years of oil and grit and rubber and rubbish that goes down, and they didn't dial into it. You can see the heat haze coming off the racetrack there, can't you? And a glorious afternoon for a motor race, Mr. Croft.
Well, it certainly is, and a very healthy crowd here as well, and great to see so many British fans have made their way to the circuit de Catalunya. It's been brilliant to talk to them all throughout the afternoon. Are they cheering on Lewis Hamilton? Are they cheering on Jenson Button or even Jolyon Palmer? They've all certainly got their favourites. Hamilton's pole time yesterday, 2.6 seconds quicker than the pole time was in 2015, and even allowing for maybe a second and a half on the soft compound tyres. It was a very impressive time. Times have been quicker all weekend long.
And lots of very clever people I've asked in the paddock have yet to give me a convincing reason. Of course, there's evolution, but 2.6 seconds faster.
Yeah. But
9/10 of that was probably the tyres, but that's some kind of improvement, isn't it?
There is Sergio Marchionne watching on from the Ferrari garage. What Hamilton wants now is the quickest reaction time. I don't want to put a curse on it, but in Australia, he lost 5 places on lap 1. In Bahrain, he lost 6 places on lap 1, and it all came from a poor start from pole position.
It's a messy old grid because it reminds you there's a lot of motorcycle racing takes place there. You can see all the little hatchings there where they start from. There are now some boards to their right with their number and name on, and and the further back you are, especially if somebody stops a little bit short from their grid slot,
like that,
it's very easy actually to either overshoot or stop one short yourself. But the name boards on the right are a bit of a giveaway now.
So a 50-second career pole for Lewis Hamilton equals the combined total of Nigel Mansell and Damon Hill. And for Mercedes, a 4th consecutive front row lockout. All the camera phones now trained onto the grid where the cars are lined up, and we wait for the green flag. There it is. We have 66 laps ahead of us for this Spanish Grand Prix in 2016. And it's lights out and away we go. It was a super start from Nico Rosberg. Hamilton's got going as well, moves over to try and cover his teammate, who now slips behind him a toe. Daniel Ricciardo in 3rd already. It's Sebastian Vettel pressurising Max Verstappen down the inside. Round the outside goes Nico Rosberg into turn 1, ahead of Lewis Hamilton. Then sets in Daniel Ricciardo, and then Sebastian Vettel ahead of Max Verstappen. Good start from Carlos Sainz. He's ahead of Valtteri Bottas. Round turn 3 we go, and it's Nico Rosberg, and Hamilton's onto the grass, and Hamilton's in a massive crash. And he's crashed into his teammate. The 2 Mercedes come together as Hamilton trying to pass on the inside, and he can cover his hands over his eyes, and he won't want to see that again. We have the safety car out here, but the 2 Silver Arrows have crashed on the opening lap. Hamilton takes out his teammates, and there will be a big inquiry behind closed doors into that.
And in his hands, like we saw in Istanbul many years ago, and Lewis probably a little bit surprised that he lost the lead in the first place. Like how he ended up so far on the grass on his way into turn 4, and see the replay of that. And Nico obviously going in to defend. Let's see if he did that. So they're quite a long way apart. Also behind them, Vettel had a massive moment, so tremendous launch off the corner, and Rosberg went over to cover the line, but Hamilton was coming at him so fast that he effectively had only the grass to go to. But look at this. This is now they're quite a long way apart. but Lewis gets such a launch off the top of turn 3. And he's now up the inside, and I'm afraid Nico Rosberg has got to take every bit as much blame for that as Lewis Hamilton, and I don't think he recognised quite how quickly his teammate was on him. He's covered him off, but he covered him off too late.
Before the braking zone?
Oh, yeah, well, before the braking zone,
So
yes.
did he have a right to cover him off?
If we need to see exactly where Hamilton's front wheel was, but if he was alongside, if his front wheel or his front wing was alongside Rosberg's front tyre, rear tyre, then he's entitled to a car's width of space.
Yeah, that's the regulations in terms of driving standards within the sporting regulations. Hamilton chucking his steering wheel out of the car. The championship leader and the man in second place, the defending champion, with the big boss of Daimler-Benz watching on from the Mercedes garage, have taken themselves out, and there will be a massive inquiry behind closed doors as to whose blame it was and how the team move on from there, because we saw it at Spa, didn't we, a couple of years ago, and it's been on the track fairly even, apart from the likes of Austin at the first turn since then. But today they've both come together, with Hamilton knowing just how important it is to be leading at the end of turn 1 here and making a move that you wouldn't normally see. In his desperation, they've come together.
But Hamilton was on much more on the racing line in turn 3, having gone up there, having lost places. And we saw also the red light flashing on the back of Rosberg's car that is harvesting energy. Whether I haven't seen the rear of Hamilton's car yet, so we don't think Hamilton was harvesting at that point. So came off there with more power as Rosberg was charging his batteries up, if you like. And so Hamilton, better track position, racing line, not harvesting, and he just closed in on him. And it seems as if he got there a lot faster than Rosberg. Now let's have a look at this. So yeah, I would say Lewis had his front wing and front wheel far enough up the inside of his surprise teammate to earn the right to a car's width of space.
See, there Nico Rosberg goes. As soon as he sees Hamilton come from behind his rear wing, Rosberg moves over to cover him.
Yeah. And the team might say to him, why were you so aggressively covering him off? And I mean, I'm not giving that 100% to Rosberg, but Hamilton had earned the right to some space.
So let's have a look at the start, and it's Ricciardo leading this race behind the safety car from Verstappen, Sainz, Vettel, Raikkonen and Bottas, the top 6. You can see Vettel getting a much better start from Kimi Raikkonen there, and Raikkonen then gets past and almost clipped by Bottas in the Williams.
Yeah, Vettel's gone up into 4th there, look.
Yeah.
And then gets himself, we'll watch the two front ones already, but Vettel has nearly dropped it at the top of turn 3
yeah.
as the Red Bull goes back past him. And here's the overhead shot then.
Once you get onto the grass, no chance.
Yeah, you go straight to the scene of the accident from there, even on dry grass. And it's basically, safety car's in this lap, but basically Rosberg went to cover. Had he misinterpreted how quickly, he knew his teammate was coming at him, misinterpreted how quickly, and Lewis drove into a wedge that then had to turn into grass.
Well, Mercedes, who won this race by 49 seconds and 45 seconds in the last 2 years, we're not going to be doing that today. It's going to be a much different Spanish Grand Prix, and it's led by Daniel Ricciardo, who last led in Austin, of course, and plenty of fans in the grandstands cheering on the two Red Bulls of Ricciardo and Verstappen, and Sainz, who's racing in 3rd place. The safety car is coming in, and we can go racing again. Then you've got the two Ferraris of Sebastian Vettel ahead of Kimi Raikkonen in 4th and 5th. Bottas ahead of Perez after that. Daniel Ricciardo has got a very nice jump indeed after the safety car peels off, and a decent gap over his teammate Max Verstappen to lead them down the main straight as the green flags are waved and we go racing again. Into turn 1 we go, looking to see who can mount a challenge here. Under pressure, Carlos Sainz from Sebastian Vettel, who's just a little bit too far behind. Then comes Kimi Raikkonen, Bottas, and then comes Sergio Perez. Jenson Button, who's ahead of his teammate Fernando Alonso, and Romain Grosjean, who's who's dropped now down to 10th, just ahead of Daniil Kvyat. And the stewards, and I'm sure the Mercedes management are going to be looking at, after the race, the incident probably involving Rosberg and Hamilton. I don't think Kimi Raikkonen was anywhere near Lewis Hamilton, was he?
No. And yeah, that's only going to need one team manager and 2 drivers to have that inquiry. I think, yeah, it says car 7 Raikkonen on the computer here. But so a 1, 2, 3 then for Red Bull at the moment. Now, we've often wondered how good Grand Prix racing would be if Mercedes hadn't been here for a couple of years dominating. We're about to find out.
What did Bernie Eccleston say to you on the grid? I'm going to go and have a word and stop Mercedes dominating the sport.
Yeah.
Did he have a word with Lewis Hamilton or Nico Rosberg? Here is Daniil Kvyat into turn 10 on Romain Grosjean. Just slightly locks up, has to watch out for Nico Hülkenberg on the inside there, with the Renault of Kevin Magnussen lurking just behind. Kvyat trying to make up a place and put his car into the points. Yeah, confirmation, Rosberg and Hamilton to be investigated after the race, not Kimi Raikkonen. I'm sure the Ferrari team are fairly surprised by that previous message. Ricciardo's lead then, and he did lead, of course, 2 laps in China, I shouldn't forget. 1.2 seconds over Max Verstappen. Carlos Sainz runs in 3rd and still under pressure from Sebastian Vettel.
Remember in the past, every time Daniel Ricciardo has been offered a chance to beat a Mercedes when they've stepped on their own tails, it must be said most of the time, he's taken it, hasn't he? Yeah. He loves it out front there. It's not pressure for him. We could see a new youngest ever man on the podium, couldn't we, if Verstappen makes it to the podium?
Yeah, Sebastian Vettel was 20 years and 89 days in 2007 when he led a race on the podium, of course, in 2008 in Monza. For the one and only podium that Toro Rosso have got. Well, Max Verstappen today is 18 years of age and 227 days. And so we can absolutely smash those records.
Yeah.
I wrote it down at the start of the week thinking, just in case.
Could we see the youngest ever Grand Prix winner? Long way to go.
And of course, the Dutchman has never won a race and has never led a lap in F1 history as well.
Better get his clogs down then. He is a fast boy, and he's got a very fast teammate in front of him, and he'll need to pick up the pace because Ricciardo loves it out there. But how quickly can the Ferraris get past Carlos Sainz, and can they get past him?
Well, the trouble is Carlos Sainz has got a Ferrari engine in the back of that Toro Rosso, albeit last year's Ferrari engine.
I know, how embarrassing is that? How embarrassing. You know, they've got the governor here and the customer team with their old throwaway engine in it, in the donkey in the back of it, pushing it along, is in front of them at the moment. And we had a long chat with Sainz Senior. I think Carlos Sainz Junior, as he doesn't like to be called, but we've got him that in this conversation, as Lewis, helmet on significantly, decides that he doesn't want to go back in and talk to anybody, unsurprisingly also. But Carlos Sainz, for me, pretty much matched everything Max Verstappen has done in a Toro Rosso. And I think it's a golden opportunity for him now to shine and say, I'm next. I'm not necessarily into the Red Bull team, because that looks a bit locked out now, doesn't it? But give me a chance in a front-running, race-winning car, because I think he's proven himself, and here he is up in 3rd place in his home Grand Prix.
Yeah, what I would say is that Sebastian Vettel has now moved himself into DRS range, so he'll have the help of DRS on the next time they make their way down the long straights. For the first couple of laps, he's just been that little bit too far back to make a challenge here, but certainly getting held up. And we can go down for some reaction down at Mercedes now. Nicky Lauders with Ted Kravitz.
Nicky, what's your reaction? How did you see that?
Completely unnecessary, I would say. And for me, the disaster is that both Mercedes are out after 2 corners is for me unacceptable.
But how did you see it? I mean, it all started that Lewis got a bad start, Nico got past him, but then was Lewis too aggressive on the inside? Should Nico have given him a bit more room and not push him on the grass?
Lewis was too aggressive to pass him, and why should Nico give him room? He was in the lead. It's very simple for me. So it was a miscalculation in Lewis's head. I blame him more than Nico, but for the team and for Mercedes, this is unacceptable.
Even after you'd said to them earlier this morning, hadn't you, don't crash into each other?
Yeah, sure, but there is always pressure. And since Spa 2 years ago, thank God nothing happens. And why here? This they have to explain to me.
That means you've handed a race possibly to Ferrari or Red Bull.
Yes, 100% after 30 seconds. Very clever.
Yeah, and usually I don't agree with Nicky there on 2 points. You know, you've got two great drivers in the same team. It's going to happen from time to time. You can't have all those glory moments, all the champagne, all the silverware, and then not expect this to happen. Two bulls in the same field, and it's inevitable. And you just have to, you know, soak it up, and you know, just that is inevitable when you've got two great racing drivers in the fastest car on the track. And I think the speed Lewis took off turn 3 gave him the right to think about trying to outbrake his teammate into turn 4. I don't agree. I think you do agree with Nicky, Crofty.
Slightly.
Yeah. I don't agree with Nicky on that. I really don't.
It was an ambitious move, I must admit, and I think Nico covered him off before the braking zone. Is now Sebastian Vettel, after trying around the outside on the previous lap, goes down the inside of Carlos Sainz on this lap 8 of the Spanish Grand Prix, and finally the new Ferrari engine has got past the old Ferrari engine, the works team getting past Toro Rosso, and Sebastian Vettel puts himself up into the podium places. Now we're on board with Kimi Raikkonen. He's got to do the same job as his teammate, and we'll see if Vettel now can chase after Verstappen or Ricciardo. And was Ted Kravitz right? Have Mercedes handed the race to Ferrari, or have they handed it to Red Bull? We've got a long, long way to go here, and sadly for Vettel, the two Red Bulls are already quite a long way ahead.
We haven't mentioned also, looking down the field a little bit, Button's up to 8th ahead of Alonso now. Both McLarens in the points. Grosjean in the points again at the moment in 10th. And Massa has gone not very far actually, has he? He's only up to 16th place at the moment.
He's got past Nasser and Ericsson. He was ahead of them anyway, wasn't he?
Danny, we need to give the position back to Hülkenberg on Magnussen behind you. Overtake under safety car.
Come on guys, are they serious?
Well, we didn't see him overtake behind the safety car. He has now given that place back to Kevin Magnussen. There's Danny Kvyat, whose week is going from kind of bad to worse to, oh, not again.
Yeah, and he's had to let Hülkenberg through at the same time then, yeah?
I think Hülkenberg
yes,
might have been well, Hülkenberg's definitely ahead of Magnussen, and we're on board now with Jolyon Palmer, and Jolyon Palmer has Esteban Gutierrez sneaking through at the chicane as Kimi Raikkonen now into turn 1 as Carlos Sainz going to be passed at the same corner by the same team for 2 laps running? No, because Raikkonen had to go off the track. There just wasn't the room down there for him. Sainz will keep that place. We look at Romain Grosjean chasing down Fernando Alonso with DRS range. Felipe Massa, meanwhile, has come into the pits. He hadn't actually overtaken anybody at all. And is that Massa coming out on the medium compound tyres? Yes, it is. So an early pit stop for Williams, who might now, as we're on lap 9, be going for a 3-stop strategy here, just to put themselves a little bit out of sync. And we can see what happened now to Palmer and to Gutierrez. He was trying a move, wasn't he, Palmer, on Gutierrez? Didn't quite come off for him.
GP2 star move there for Jolyon as the GP2 champion that he was, but Kimi is always going to run out of space on that one. Then they've got those sausage curbs there that are somewhat uncomfortable, and realises there's no point in him. Look at this closing speed with DRS and no doubt a bit of extra battery power and a 2016 motor, and young Sainz says not this time.
Well, I'm sure there will be lots and lots of theories put forward, debated long after this race has finished. We'll have the all tweets, hashtag AskCrofty, after the race as well. But the fact is that we have 20 runners here at the Spanish Grand Prix on lap 10 of 66. And it is neither of the Mercedes that are still running. Rosberg and Hamilton coming together. Now comes Kimi Raikkonen on Carlos Sainz. Once around the outside like his teammate, once down the inside like his teammate. And at the second time of asking, Raikkonen gets past Carlos Sainz. So it's 2 Red Bulls from 2 Ferraris and a Toro Rosso into the top 5 now.
Good team move. Sainz moving about a little bit when Vettel went past him, which fair enough. But I think he fought as hard as he could without tripping over anybody and losing anybody bits of bodywork. So Sainz then the inevitable, and 10 seconds then covers the top 5 last time around, and that's game on now, isn't it? 2 Ferraris versus 2 Red Bulls for the rest of the afternoon.
Sainz having a similar race to last year, really. He started 5th on the grid here last year and finished 9th eventually. He's now got to try and hold up Valtteri Bottas for as long as he possibly can. That might be a slightly easier job for him than holding up the 2 Ferraris, although he was doing a mighty fine job for as long as he could. The gap out in front was about 1.2 seconds, and in the last 3 laps has grown to 1.5 seconds between Ricciardo and Verstappen. Sebastian Vettel is lapping round about 0.3 of a second quicker than Max Verstappen at the moment, but he is 4.5 seconds back. And Hulkenberg has come into the pits, changed onto the medium tyres as well. So Ted, the medium tyre seems to be the favourite set for the second stint.
Yes, indeed. I haven't seen anyone put a soft tyre on now. Force India actually coming out and again for another one of their drivers. But I fancy that Ferrari are thinking that they don't want to let Red Bull win this race. No chance. Now it is Hulkenberg who comes into this pit box. But I think if we might see the undercut used by Ferrari to try and close down this 3-second gap they've got to Verstappen, and that automatically will put Ricciardo under threat. So let's keep our eyes peeled off the Ferrari pit crew in about a couple of laps' time, Crofty. See if they pull the trigger.
And of course, now that Sainz is pitted as well, he's got into some traffic, but Ferrari have got to think about his undercut as well, haven't they?
And look at this, for the power of the undercut here. Felipe Massa now ahead of Nico Hulkenberg. So Massa has kind of triggered off this latest, the first round of pit stops, and he's got himself at least 1 place over Nico Hulkenberg there. It's Force India covering it off, Martin, but too late.
Yeah, they've gone to the white marked medium tyres. The reason here is because the corners are so long and the surface temperature of the tyre really gets high. It's it's a lot of punishment, especially for the front left through turn 3. So that's why you're seeing a step harder on the compounds today.
Race leader, I think, is coming in. Daniel Ricciardo. Yes, he is. So the man who led in China and suffered that puncture, got through the first stint and now needs, for his own peace of mind, a nice slick pit stop, and that's exactly what he gets from his Red Bull crew. And he's back out onto the racetrack, and he should come out ahead of Jolyon Palmer and just behind Romain Grosjean, who of course hasn't stopped on the track yet. There is Romain Grosjean making his way down the main straight. Ricciardo slots back into the race. Jolyon Palmer actually pits for Renault as well. Also into the pits, Jenson Button and Fernando Alonso. Ted, down to you.
Nice strategy by Red Bull. I like that. That's racy, that's aggressive. Don't wait for Ferrari to pit and try and undercut you. Just go and do it yourself on lap 12. That's nice. That's good stuff by Red Bull.
Nico Rosberg and Lewis Hamilton making their way to what they call the treehouse, where the engineers sit. Neither of them taking their crash helmet off. I wonder how long they can get away with that.
Something I saw on the grid, just as I handed over for the national anthem, was Lewis rushing to his back. He was about 4 seconds late for the national anthem, bashing cameras out of the way and really urgently trying to get to be where he should have been, it must be said. And it just surprised me at the anxiousness, the urgency of that. I'm not saying it's anything to do with his crash, but I was surprised at how concerned he was that he wasn't standing on the front of the grid.
That's very true. Right, let's just look here as Max Verstappen comes in for his pit stop. If he'd have completed that lap, he'd have been the youngest man to officially lead a Grand Prix, but he would have had to have completed that lap for it to count. So technically he was heading the field, but he didn't do a full lap in terms of being in the lead. And his teammate Daniel Ricciardo, you can see him now behind Romain Grosjean, is going down towards turn 1 as out into the racetrack again comes Max Verstappen ahead of the other Haas car of Esteban Gutierrez. So at the moment, Sebastian Vettel leads this race ahead of Grosjean, Ricciardo, Verstappen and Gutierrez, but Vettel hasn't stopped yet. Verstappen and Ricciardo, of course, have. 2 Mercedes out, as we've just seen them making their way to the treehouse. Rosberg and Hamilton. Anthony Davidson's been looking at that start again. What do you make of it, Ant?
Yeah, basically just seeing the onboard shots of both drivers, it really looks like Rosberg is maximum capacity. He's all over the steering wheel and he moves over without really looking to the inside. By that time, Lewis has already put his nose there, and to an ever-closing gap, I can totally see how it's going to happen.
So would you then agree with Martin Brundle that if he wasn't looking and watching his mirrors, and Hamilton, you know, was maybe entitled to go for it, there's more blame on Rosberg's part than there is on Hamilton's.
I would say yes, I would agree with that.
Anthony has all the TV monitors in the world to look at there, and I'm glad he makes good use of it. So what's that then? That's Sky Analyst 2, Niki Lauda 1.
Everybody's entitled to their opinion. Opinions are like noses. Everybody has got one, and that's why we love to have you with us. It's why people watch Sky F1, because we have all of these tools and to analyse these things. And Ant's been on the Sky Pad, seen lots of information to help us confirm that. Let's see what the drivers and team say later on.
Fresh tyres for Daniel Ricciardo, easy picking. Romain Grosjean down the main straight, puts himself up in a second place now, does Ricciardo. Vettel leads then from the Red Bull once again. Paddy Lowe and Toto Wolff made their way from the pit wall, where, let's face it, there's nothing to do there for Mercedes now, and into the treehouse to join the drivers. I tell you what, Martin, I wouldn't mind being a fly for the next hour and just positioning myself near the ceiling, as round the outside goes Fernando Alonso off Rio Haryanto, and Alonso chasing down Jenson Button. Button is in 10th place at the moment. Alonso chasing him down, and we saw, didn't we, that Button had got ahead of Alonso from the start. They made a very good start indeed. There's the gap out in front, 16 seconds for Vettel over Ricciardo. He's not stopped yet, the Ferrari driver, and it's round about a 22-second loss for each pit stop here. So if that's the case, he's got 6 seconds to make up when he finally puts some new tyres on.
Yeah, unless he can squeeze into a two-stopper, of course. The safety car helped that. Certainly helps the fuel situation. They can go flat out for the rest of the afternoon. And there's a lonely Ferrari on a set of old tyres.
So,
not quite lonely enough, as you point out, David, with 16 seconds advantage.
Yeah, and unless it's 3 stops for Red Bull, it's 2 stops for Ferrari, but it's in these temperatures, can Ferrari keep their tyres from overheating? There goes down the inside Max Verstappen on Romain Grosjean once again, and Kimi Raikkonen is also getting himself involved on Esteban Gutierrez. He's just set the fastest lap of the race, as you can see. So the 2 Haas cars getting overtaken by Verstappen and then by Raikkonen within the space of a few hundred metres. Ted, down to you.
Picture we're seeing, that's definitely the picture, isn't it, Crofty, that Red Bull know that the fastest way to run this race, if you're out front and can control it, is to do a 3-stop. That's why they put both their drivers with an early stop onto what would look like at the moment a 3-stop strategy. That means that Ferrari have now split their strategies, put Kimi following them on a 3-stop, but reserve Sebastian Vettel for the 2-stop, which means that Vettel will have track position at the end of the race, and it'll be up to the Red Bulls to overtake the Ferraris, which will be a difficult prospect at a track where overtaking is quite tricky. So stay tuned, everyone. Oh, hang on, we got a Ferrari in the pit lane.
Well, we've got a Ferrari crew coming out now, and there is.
And that's about as early as possible for a 2-stop.
Yeah, lap 15 for Sebastian Vettel. Very tricky to make these soft compound tyres last much longer than he has. Lovely orchestrated balletic pit stop will get him out onto the track, but where Ricciardo and Verstappen have already gone through. Grosjean now pits, you can see the 2 Red Bulls, and behind comes Kimi Raikkonen. So of course Raikkonen's almost performed the undercut on his teammate there, but he got held up a little bit by Gutierrez, so he's not in a position to trouble Sebastian Vettel. So the 1, 2, 3, Ricciardo, Verstappen, Vettel make that Raikkonen now with 4, 2 Red Bulls, 2 Ferraris, and they're separated by roughly 10 seconds, I would say.
So Vettel's tyres then 4 laps younger than Ricciardo's, 3 laps younger than Verstappen. Verstappen now 2.3 behind Ricciardo. He did a very quick lap out of the box. He might regret stealing that grip that was available, Max Verstappen, and I think you need to definitely share the love out with these tyres, share the grip out through the first few laps, and not take all the sweeties that are there for you to grab in the first instance. And Ricciardo knows that extremely well, but Vettel, I would say Ferrari have just brought Vettel nicely into play with that.
Yeah.
Whether they 2 or 3 stop.
It's patience, isn't it? That's what you need with these tyres, which is probably not a commodity that a Formula 1 driver has in abundance.
No, especially Mercedes drivers today.
Yes. Here, I'm sure, from them and from Toto Wolff, maybe before the race is out. But at the moment, conversations taking place behind closed doors. If you're just joining us, we're on lap 16 out of 66. They came together at turn 4, and that is the result. Both Mercedes cars are out. Hamilton crashing into Rosberg, but as we've heard from Anthony, he was watching the onboards. Nico Rosberg wasn't aware too early that his teammate was coming up on the inside, and as you said, Martin, Lewis Hamilton entitled to go for the move.
That vision of those two in this gravel trap at turn 4 on the first lap, I think will be a defining moment of this season, and possibly a defining moment of where the Mercedes team heads for 2017.
We'll just watch this now as Felipe Massa behind Fernando Alonso, closing up on Alonso. Everyone has pitted, just to let you know, bar Rio Haryanto, who started on the medium compound tyres anyway. Nico Hülkenberg's getting very interested in Romain Grosjean, and just to add to the debate, Niki Lauda is now going to go and have his 2 penneth in the Mercedes treehouse, which is very much the place to be if you don't want to watch the cars going well.
Yeah, they don't seem too interested in the race, do they? But I mean, it looks like they're all going to wake, but it's a race, you know.
On the subject of the defining moment of the season, the one thing I hope, Martin, that doesn't come as a result of this is Mercedes say, that's it, stop racing each other. Because as frustrating and as difficult it is for the team to swallow today, everyone wants to see every car racing each other. You don't want team orders and drivers being told, you know, don't overtake here. You get away into the first turn, that's it, you stay ahead.
Yeah, we certainly had that in 2014 a bit, and we didn't enjoy it too much. So Ted's got more news.
Oh no, Martin, I just wanted to let you know, just before I interviewed Lauda back there, he did RTL first, and then he did Sky Germany, because I thought I'd let them go first because it's their own language. And I sort of said to him while they were waiting for their commentator to throw down to them, I said, oh well, you know, surprised it hasn't happened sooner really. And he gave me a laugh, and then I was slightly surprised that he came out and did the whole unacceptable line. Because don't you think they have the capacity, they have the luxury to be a bit cool about all this now, don't you think? And Martin, would you just like to develop what you said? What did you mean about for next year? What you mean in terms of Rosberg signing a new contract, whether Hamilton wants to stay or not?
Yes, I do. I think it will be. I say it's a defining moment because they've got to make decisions going forward, and a little bit like we've seen in other teams in history, or maybe we even saw with Verstappen and Sainz at Toro Rosso more recently, is can they continue working together, those two drivers? Do they have to separate them? Do they have to find a new way going forward? Is it recoverable? It'd be very interesting to see how they react to this afternoon, because I think it's a defining moment, Ted.
Out on the track at the moment, we're watching the battle for 9th place, Alonso, Massa and Grosjean, but there is a battle for 2nd that is brewing up like a very tasty cup of tea on a Sunday afternoon between Sebastian Vettel and Max Verstappen. It's now 1.6 seconds, the difference between Verstappen and Vettel. Vettel's going quicker than Ricciardo as well. Only 3.5 seconds separate the top 3 here, and Ferrari might have played a masterstroke, and their car might be working better on the medium tyres than it seemed to do on the soft tyres at the start. We'll keep an eye on the timing screens there as we watch around the final corner. Romain Grosjean now, has he got some pace with some DRS to have a go at Felipe Massa? The trouble for him is that Massa is close enough to Fernando Alonso to have a go in under DRS as well, and the problem for the two chasing Fernando Alonso is that they're forced to hold stations going into turn 1 and both cancelling out each other.
You're right, Crofty. Both Ferraris quicker than both Red Bulls last time around. So 7.7 seconds covering the top 4. You get that kind of information, of course, on the bottom of your screen, updated every few hundred meters as well. But that's very interesting indeed. That trafficless few laps that Vettel was able to do, and then a nice clean pit stop. He stopped on his marks beautifully, and all of a sudden he's checking out the gearbox of a Red Bull.
What seems to me to be Red Bull's strength here is they're better in the final sector, but where Ferrari have the advantage, I think, is in pure grunt terms down the main straight. So once he can get into DRS range, Vettel will have an excellent chance. It's now down to 1 second, 1.1 second, the gap between Verstappen and Vettel. If it was just under 1 second, he's got the DRS usage. I'm not sure that he had there. As he crossed the line, it was 1 second, and then another 100 meters further on, It was 1.1 second. There's such a defined margins, and very frustrating, I'm sure it is too. Looking now down at 1.09, it will change and fluctuate, but it's where you are in the detection zone for the DRS that enables it to open or not. There's Jenson Button running on his own in 8th place, Fernando Alonso, and the man behind him.
Well, Massa's got himself up now behind Alonso into 10th place, and in the points with that early stop for Williams. That worked out well for them, didn't it? That very early stop.
If he can hang on at the end of the stint,
yeah.
You know, Williams might have played a strategic masterclass. What is interesting here, of course, Grosjean is on the soft compound tyre. He's the only one out there, apart from Ericsson, that is using the soft compound tyre for his second stint. Vettel is now within DRS range of Max Verstappen.
It's another point, Crofty. You remember Lewis is on 2 reprimands. If for some reason they do decide that's his fault, might be another driving reprimand, which means a 10th place grid drop for Monaco.
Absolutely, which is, well, that's your afternoon wrecked, isn't it? It's a very good point. Martin Donnelly is the driver steward here for this weekend.
Yeah, I said to Martin, don't give them any penalties in the race. Let them go and sort it out on track, or behind the motorhomes after the race. That's where we don't want all these driving penalties. Let them sort it out like men.
No DRS again for Sebastian Vettel. That final sector rather helping Red Bull's cause, or Max Verstappen's cause at the moment. And what pressure must be on the shoulders of a young 18-year-old, knowing that the young Sebastian Vettel, because he's still only 28, but the vastly more experienced and 4-time world champion, is chasing him down. And of course the man that went and had a chat with Christian Horner on the pit wall just 2 weeks ago in Sochi to complain about Danny Kvyat, who's currently running down in 14th place, just to let you know. Ted, down to you.
Let's pick up again on Lewis and Nico. They do need to go and see the stewards. In fact, they might be there now.
You know, after the race, it said.
Once, well, I'm understanding from the team is that they're going to go and see them before they talk to the media.
Right.
So they might try and do that mid-race if the stewards will see them.
Surely the stewards have got other things to be doing during the race, but they are still in the treehouse at the moment, and hardly the treehouse of fun down there in the paddock. So that's the gap. That's Ricciardo over Verstappen, and he's built an advantage of 7/10 of a second in the last 5 laps. It's 1.4 seconds on the timing screens. He's running a decent race, being patient with those tyres. He's out in front and, you know, driving to a delta, to a time that he would have been set in the morning briefing. This is what we want out of you for the medium tyres, to make them last the longest.
Important day for Ferrari. Macchione here, reading the right act of his team. Mercedes out of the race. They don't seize this opportunity.
Oh, talking of people who are in trouble, that's Nico Hulkenberg.
I think there's a lot of smoke at the back of my car. Pull over by a fire marshal. Pull over by a fire marshal. Find a safe place to stop. Pull over by a fire marshal.
Engine problems, maybe, for Nico Hulkenberg, who stops by a fire marshal. Andrew Green, their technical director, watching on from inside the garage. Yet more disappointment and bad luck for Nico Hulkenberg, who, remember, had the DNF. They did not finish in Russia when Gutierrez clouted him from behind, and has still only scored points in Australia this season. And that
looks possibly dangerous, that fire extinguisher.
It does a bit. He's a man with a very strong grip to operate it, that man being Nico Hulkenberg.
The kind that he took off backwards, didn't he?
Yeah.
When he squirted it full, but a lot of pressure in that thing.
And we saw Sergio Perez have a problem in practice on Friday. I'm not sure if it's related or a different issue with Perez. It was a radiator that was leaking, and the oil from it just ignited and caused a lot of smoke.
A bit more like a turbo to me, but that engine's way too young to smoke.
Yeah, Hulkenberg out of this race, so that's the 3rd car that we have lost in it. And out in front, the gap now 2.3 seconds, covering the top 3. And still Sebastian Vettel continues his charge towards Max Verstappen. Verstappen will know he's there, but at the moment, Vettel can't even get within jabbing range, let alone range to pull off the big undercut or uppercut.
Calm before the storm, isn't it?
Yeah. It's
just positioning themselves at the moment.
It's just brewing up nicely, isn't it?
We're not half distance yet, and it is brewing up a treat.
No Mercedes cars. Remind you, if you're just joining us, Rosberg and Hamilton out after coming together. As Niki Lauda said, within 30 seconds of the start, Rosberg getting ahead of Hamilton, off the line and into turn one, swoop around the outside. It looked to me like he got a slightly better getaway from his teammate, and then slotted in nicely and picked up the toe. Nico Hülkenberg also out, back-to-back retirements for him, first time since Russia and the US Grand Prix last season. But for Force India, they have Perez in the points at the moment, currently running 7th.
Yellow flag waving there for some reason.
As we see a replay of Esteban Gutierrez on Kevin Magnussen. That puts Gutierrez up into 12th place. That one is what it looks like on board with the Mexican driver. Fairly easy under DRS for him, wasn't it?
Yeah, not badly, but he's obviously been saving his battery power up for then as well to help him. It's not always as obvious as it seems, because we know that they can control, obviously, they can underutilise the battery in other parts of the lab and then pump it all out when it suits them within certain constraints, obviously, of the amount of power. 160 horsepower it is, the power of the batteries, and not letting them overfill or overheat or derate, as it's called. Ted's got more news.
Did you notice Haryanto into the pits on your...
Just come in, isn't he?
Yeah, so he was the only one who started on medium tyres.
He was.
So they did 23 laps. So I know Rio Haryanto in a Manor Mercedes isn't exactly a bellwether for Red Bull Racing in their efforts today, but if he is, a vague guideline that the medium tyre will do very comfortably 23 laps, it's not impossible Red Bull could stretch this out, Crofty, with just a micro first stint and then stretch out these stints and still do a two-stop. And they are in a position to do that. I know you said that earlier, to cover what Vettel did. And that's why I thought this is such a nice aggressive strategy for Red Bull, what they did earlier. I just thought it was such a good idea to not wait for an undercut, not wait for what Ferrari might do, but take the initiative and then sort it out later. And if the medium tyres are hanging on like it looks like they are, then they can still switch to a two-stop, Red Bull. They're not tied to a 3.
We'll have to wait and see. You might be right there, Tim, but we'll have to wait and see. What I do notice is that Verstappen is really getting on the throttle pedal out of some of the corners. You can see it wagging its tail. That Red Bull, there it is again, is leaning on his rear tyres. He's catching his teammate. He's almost in the DRS zone. But is he just taking a bit too much out of the tyres? Vettel will be calmly watching that behind, just squeezing that throttle pedal with the prodigious amounts of torque that these cars have got now, a little bit more gently.
You need a rather sensitive sole of your foot these days, don't you?
Unfortunately, yeah. It's, I mean, they have got huge amounts of torque. Twisting power that'll light up the rear tyres.
Toto Wolff comes down from the treehouse. I'm not sure he's going to talk to the media just yet. Just news, not confirmed whatsoever. But Dr. Zecher, the big boss of Daimler Mercedes, in an interview with, I think with Speed Week magazine, confirmed before the race that Nico Rosberg will drive for Mercedes in 2017. Now, that's not been confirmed to any of us here at Sky Sports F1, but there is a story doing the rounds that Rosberg will drive in 2017. If that is the case, well, that's a timely contract negotiation conclusion that before today's crash.
And Ricciardo then getting the DRS off the back marker, Haryanto, stealing a bit of a slipstream off him for good measure as well.
Verstappen's catching him though, isn't he?
Yeah. And he didn't have his DRS open, did he? Another eyesore.
Definitely catching him, as we can go down to hear from Toto Wolff now with Simon.
Toto, can you tell us what was said in there, please?
We spoke to both drivers. It's not a clear-cut, very difficult situation for the team because we've lost 43 points after huge effort in the last couple of weeks. But you know, we let the drivers race, and sometimes this is what happens. The stewards are going to make a decision how they see it. In our opinion, not to want to blame entirely, and yeah, then let's see.
Niki was blaming Lewis though, Toto.
Yeah, Niki has a from his driver perspective, he has an opinion and this is his instinct, and it's fair enough that he has that. But when you look at all the data and when you have the discussions with the drivers, it's maybe different.
What's the mood like between the two? This is shades of Spa a couple of years ago. That was fairly incendiary. How do you have to manage this one now?
Well, as I said to you again, it's a very difficult situation, and they are both pretty upset because they know about the effort. And of course they have their perspective, and we need to then talk with them again, look at the pictures, look at the data, and under any circumstance avoid this to happen in the future.
Thank you.
Toto Wolff, I think, being very diplomatic and keeping his counsel there before the stewards make their decision a little later on. Verstappen very much within DRS range still of Daniel Ricciardo and Sebastian Vettel, just hanging on to the back. And of course, it's understandable that Verstappen is starting to squirm around just like that through turn 3, and Sebastian Vettel probably as well, Martin, because they're running so close to the car in front.
Yeah, and with the turbulent air, or as one engineer very eloquently described to me, there's less energy in the air you drive into when it's been used by the car in front. If we got less downforce, car starts sliding around a bit, but Max is carrying some nice forward speed with it. But Ricciardo, I think, is driving a race that he knows he can win in a style with which he can win it with.
Yeah, just keeping them at arm's length at the moment, not trying to exert too much. And Kimi Räikkönen is not really making much of an impression in fourth. He's not really joining this battle at the moment, is he?
Quite, not yet. Verstappen had DRS down to turn 10 that time. There's another point, isn't there, just before the last corner. No, just out of the chicane, actually, isn't it? Yeah, just before the last corner, out of the chicane they're coming to, where there's another reference point for DRS down the pit straight. But they both somehow, they mustn't squabble, they've got to stay away from Vettel, because I think Vettel's got enough straight line speed. Some talk they took a bit of wing out of that Ferrari for qualifying yesterday, which hampered them quite badly. And still then, look at that, he hasn't quite, Verstappen hasn't got DRS down the pit straight.
No. It's because Ricciardo in the last sector was a tenth quicker than Verstappen was, and that tenth, was crucial. 1.1 seconds in the detection zone, which is just from the exit of that final chicane.
Old school race, eh? Top 4 all in the same TV shot. Liking that. Liking that a lot.
Yeah, those were the days. It was really black and white the last time we saw that, wasn't it? So after these top 4 comes Valtteri Bottas for Williams, running a fairly lonely race in 5th place. Carlos Sainz has Jenson Button 4 seconds, Sergio Perez, I should say, 4 seconds behind him in 7th. Then Jenson Button about 7 seconds further back. But Button now about 3 and a bit seconds ahead of his teammate Fernando Alonso. Romain Grosjean is starting to close in, has DRS to use in his bid to get past Alonso. And Esteban Gutierrez is the man just outside the points, currently in 11th. Kevin Magnussen ahead of his teammate Jolyon Palmer, and then comes Felipe Nasser, and pursuing him the Williams of Felipe Massa, who's just gone quickest, the fastest lap, as you can see, of the race so far on the soft compound tyre. Pascal Wehrlein ahead of Danny Kvyat. As into the pits now comes Daniel Ricciardo, then comes Ericsson and Haryanto. Ted, down to you.
Okay, so it looks like it is a 3-stop then, just leading from the front, just doing the quickest strategy they possibly can, but this then does somewhat play into Sebastian Vettel's hands. Let's see how Ferrari go from here. It's the soft tyres for the middle stint for Daniel Ricciardo. Okay, let's see. We'll have his pace now. I think he's just trying to manage the pace towards the end of the stint on the medium tyres there. So let's see what pace he's got now and how long Verstappen stays out. That's going to be crucial, isn't it? Can Red Bull use Verstappen against Vettel here, guys?
Well, playing the team game, I'm sure they can. What was really important there was that Ricciardo came in. Oh, this is Christian Horner on an anniversary. Gets to come down and see maybe a Red Bull win as a little anniversary gift as well. That'll please hubby when he takes her out for a bit of tapas later on tonight. What was important there was that Ricciardo came out ahead of Valtteri Bottas, and he did by enough of a margin, because you don't want to get stuck behind the Williams there. That could completely wreck his race.
Thought you were going to come out with some words from a Spice Girls song there or something appropriate.
Spice Girls are not my thing. If you want a song reference, I'll tell you there are 3 out here. Rosberg, Hamilton and Hulkenberg, who pulled over to see a marshal with an extinguisher after telling the team I'm on fire.
Very good.
I'll get you a Springsteen reference.
So your voice is a little soft today. Mr. Crock, you've been singing to Mr. Springsteen all last night.
I was duetting with the boss for about 3.5 hours last night.
You and 50,000 of your bestest friends, yeah?
Absolutely, we had a blast of the weekend. It was unbelievable. 36 songs in that set last night.
So Verstappen does lead a lap.
So what's happening now is Sebastian Vettel and Ferrari are trying to undercut Max Verstappen. Verstappen has completed a lap. He is now officially the youngest driver ever to lead a lap in Formula One World Championship history. But what's going to be crucial now is what Sebastian Vettel does on this lap and whether Verstappen can hold off the Ferrari. And there was only about a 1.5 second at best difference between the two. And the undercut is really powerful here. And you know what? By not coming in, Red Bull might have made a bit of a gaffe at this moment in the race for Max Verstappen.
I wonder why they didn't pit Verstappen there, unless they're going to try and run him a few laps longer. It makes no sense to pit him next time around, really. Ted, what do you think?
I think Ferrari saw what was coming, that Red Bull were going to use Verstappen against them to try and slow Vettel's pace down, and they've just taken their own initiative, perhaps put Vettel on a 3-stop now, and try the undercut. This is going to be great, this is going to be fascinating. What are Red Bull now going to do to respond to what they do with Verstappen?
Well, they either respond
Not
now...
sure they can do much, can they? I think Vettel's going to have this.
They either respond now, but that might be fighting a lost cause, or they go to a 2-stop strategy with it, which might be the way forward. Who knows?
I think Vettel's going to have this one.
Yeah, he's done a very fast middle sector, very fast indeed. On the way out of the pit, Sebastian Vettel.
Well, they're keeping Verstappen out, because there he is. He's got Kimi Raikkonen behind him. He leads this race. Kimi Raikkonen is currently second, then Ricciardo, then Vettel, then Bottas, the top 5. But only one stop so far for the first 2, 3 and 4 have been into the pits for their second stop.
Can they 2-stop Max Verstappen? Will it work? Will he be fast enough? Meanwhile, Raikkonen, well, Ricciardo's done a new fastest lap of the race as well with his fresh tyres. Vettel's absolutely flying on his out lap, as I said. So Max might find himself, when he pits, in 3rd place. Let's see.
This is going to be fascinating, Martin. Depends when he pits. They've either cost him here a 2nd place, or they've given him the best chance possible of maybe winning this race as well, and making a 2-stop strategy work. Dietrich Mateschitz, who I assume he's got a big TV on the other side of that whiteboard to watch the race with. But could it be that the first ever Dutchman to lead a Grand Prix, first ever Dutchman to, so the youngest ever driver, I should say, to lead a Grand Prix, might become the youngest winner of this race? It might still happen yet for Max Verstappen. We might get a Dutch driver winning a Grand Prix for the first time ever. And then he could turn around to his dad, who, Jos Verstappen, has said, look, I'm going to take a back seat now, I'm going to stop kind of micromanaging or managing my son. He's wherever we want him to be, he's at Red Bull now. I'm just going to sit back, let Christian Horner and Dr. Helmut Marko take charge and responsibility. Well, it might be that Max turns around and says, yeah, thanks Dad, come and have a celebration instead.
Well, Jos has done his job as the dad, hasn't he?
Yeah.
He's got his boy into a car that can win a Grand Prix, and they are in a very strong place. And he's 18 years old, and he can actually step back a little bit. Now, I'm sure the team use it as an opportunity to go, all right, Jos, we'll take it from here. Well done so far. And that's absolutely right.
Ricciardo and Vettel trading fastest laps in this race with their new tyres that have gone on. And they're currently running in 3rd and in 4th. But with news down at Renault, Ted.
In a surprise appearance of the hard tyre, Crofty. It's gone on to Kevin Magnussen's car, and it's going to try and go to the end. The hard tyre, we never thought we'd see that race today, did we?
Well, the only one that ran the hard tyre for any lengthy stint on Friday was Carlos Sainz in the Toro Rosso. I don't think it worked out too well for them.
Kimi's catching Max. Vettel is now only 18.7 seconds behind Max Verstappen. It takes longer than that to make a pit stop.
Certainly does. He's charging at the moment is Sebastian Vettel as he makes his way through the back markers.
So both teams then look like they've split strategy. It's Ricciardo versus Vettel. Sounds familiar. Verstappen versus Raikkonen on 2 different concepts, probably.
Yeah.
And I don't know which one will work out best.
We're at half race distance, aren't we? And we're on board with Esteban Gutierrez. And that's Felipe Nasser that was alongside him and is now behind him for the moment. And that just ahead is Romain Grosjean, his teammate, who was locking up. Good move that from Gutierrez. Getting some overtaking done for the first time in a while. The Sauber of Felipe Nasser struggling a bit. That's now 14th. Gutierrez 13th and Romain Grosjean is 12th. Both Grosjean and Gutierrez, though, have been in for their second stop so far. Meanwhile, just looking at the difference between Ricciardo and Vettel, now down to 3 seconds, and he's starting to catch the former race leader and his former teammate is Sebastian Vettel, both on a soft compound tyre.
Jolyon Palmer 1 place off points at the moment in 11th, having a very solid afternoon, it seems. There's been so much action at the front, we haven't really had a chance to look down there, but Button remains ahead of Alonso, not by much, but he's there.
Alonso's catching him. This is how Gutierrez and the Nasser scrap unfolded and wound its way out. This was down into turn 4, where the two Mercedes, of course, tangled. No retreat from Hamilton, no surrender from Rosberg. Much cleaner move on the exit of it this time around from Esteban Gutierrez.
It's good driving. It's not easy to take 4 and 5 side by side.
It was a lot fairer on that particular occasion. I said Vettel was catching out on the track. Sorry, that's Raikkonen on Verstappen. He's also catching now. He's taken what, 0.6 of a second out of Verstappen on the previous lap. So Vettel catching Ricciardo. That gap is now down to about 2.5 seconds. We're on board with Romain Grosjean. Grosjean has been passed by his teammate. I think he has. Gutierrez has got past him. And Gutierrez has got past Jolyon Palmer as well. Gutierrez has decided, I want to be driver of the day today, and I'm going to make some overtakes happen. And he's starting to slice his way through the field, and Palmer's now under attack, under pressure from Grosjean, under braking brakes latest, going into turn 13 before the chicane. Jolyon Palmer has to concede another place. He's got Danny Kvyat just behind him, and in fact Palmer says, no, I'm going to come in for a pit stop instead. My tyres have had it. Yeah. Gutierrez, the key here though, Martin, Gutierrez hasn't got a point so far this season, now at 11th, ahead of his teammate.
And he's been saying, look, this car's broken down so many times, you're making me look like a bad driver, but he looked pretty sensible in those 2 laps, didn't he? Big lock up there from Joe. He's had those tyres on since lap 11, and he's about to get mugged. Look at that. So, contact then once, second time on the exit of the corner as well, from the 2 Haas drivers.
Verstappen into the pits. We mentioned that Kimi Raikkonen was catching him. So Verstappen, who was leading the race, is now coming out, and he is in 3rd place. 2.7 second stop for him. He comes out 3rd on the racetrack. There's just back markers going past Wehrlein and Haryanto going through there. So can he get to the end of this race? 21 laps. The crew say well done. That should be the last time that Max Verstappen comes in for a pit stop.
31 laps, Crofty?
31 laps, yeah.
Yeah.
Is that my maths failing me?
Yes.
Right, well, in which case, can he make it last 31 laps? If not, he's got...
Yeah, if not, it's a bit of a half a strategy, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm thinking that 25 laps could be the maximum for him, with a lot less fuel on board. Surely if they were committing to a 2-stop, then you go for another 5 laps, or did they take the gamble, take the risk, and then think, actually no, we're not going to, we could even lose 4th here. I mean, Ted, it might just be that they tried it and realised before it was way too late that the gamble had not paid off.
Well, now Ferrari are reacting. I would say this is about 5 laps too short to make a 2-stop work really comfortably, given that at the end anybody on a 3 is just going to be so much faster on their tyres. But they're both going to give it a go. Both Kimi Raikkonen, who comes out on a medium tyre, and Max Verstappen. It could work, but then, as you say, it's sort of half a strategy. But we'll see.
And Verstappen has really struggled as well to to get past Haryanto. I think he was there for a while. Raikkonen's now up behind. There is Wehrlein. Verstappen was struggling to pass, but Raikkonen has got the same problem now with the other Manor.
Pretty much in the same part of the racetrack that Verstappen would. Meanwhile, you've got to look for the Ricciardo and Sebastian Vettel scrap. Down the straight, there's the first sector, there's a 0.3 of a second advantage in Sebastian Vettel's favour. We're riding on board with him now as they reach the top of the hill, turn 9, and swing right-handed for the next DRS zone. No indication from this shot that he's got DRS, but certainly gets mightily close to Daniel Ricciardo under braking, and that will just serve to whet Vettel's appetite for the scrap to come.
So they're obviously expecting to go to the end, aren't they, with Verstappen and Raikkonen on those mediums? But I don't...
They're going to be hanging on.
They're going to be hanging on, and will they have track position?
And the Ferrari crew, as they try the undercut once again.
They're trying to match, aren't they? They're trying to...
Well, they're out there, but I wonder if there's a... No, they're going back in again.
Yeah.
I wonder if they were just given the call there, either as a little bluff to Red Bull to get them worried, or maybe a problem for Kimi Raikkonen. But Sebastian Vettel's within DRS range now of Ricciardo, the race leader.
Yeah, they've got to get those back in the blankets in a hurry. I mean, it was a good bluff, because they got the tyres right out, and they're not allowed in the pit lane unless they're reasonably expecting a pit stop for safety reasons. But we do see them occasionally bluffing, don't we?
Once in a while. They can always find a way to excuse the attempt, I'm sure. But you either think, well, it's a problem for Raikkonen who just come in, or he'll be trying a very strange strategy with Sebastian Vettel. There's a McLaren in the pits. It's Jenson Button who's pitting, and there's another lock-up from Romain Grosjean. He's struggling out there. Yeah,
that's inevitably going to make the gravel going into a lock-up into turn 7. What's unusual there is you don't brake that hard for that corner, relatively speaking, in an F1 car, I should say.
Described at times this weekend as a disaster to drive. The Haas by Romain Grosjean, one of his more positive attempts at feedback. Well, now Sebastian Vettel is coming into the pits. So Ferrari are trying the undercut 1 lap later than they had originally planned. And this, a third stop for Sebastian Vettel. Medium tyres going on. Of course, he had the softs on before.
They're going to have to, either they saw a slow puncture or something, or they're trying to rattle Red Bull's cage.
How many laps have he done on the soft? 8 laps only on the soft compound tyre. As he comes out ahead of Haryanto, who's been lapped, of course, by the race leader. Ted, down to you.
I'm on the move, Crofty. I'm on the waddle down to Ferrari, because that doesn't make any sense. If you're on a 3-stop, you wait until lap 45, so you can have nice fresh tyres towards the end of the race. And that looks like what Red Bull are going to stay on. So I'll find out whether there's any other reason other than tactical.
Okay.
Okay, Joe, we have solid blue for Ricciardo behind. He's the race leader, 2 seconds behind. Very same in the mirror. I know, you're doing same lap time than him.
He's had quite a few blue laps, blue flags even waved at him. As Jolyon Palmer, and just being told by the team, you've got to get out of Ricciardo's way. Well, that's obviously not going to help Ricciardo. He's still actually behind Jolyon Palmer at the moment. That's costing him time. And is that going to help Sebastian Vettel, I wonder?
Yeah, see, Joe's in the 129s, and so are the leaders. And that's his point. He asked me about this on the way home from Russia, funny enough, what to do about it, because it wrecked his race. Unfortunately, when you get those warnings, you have to get out of the way. And he said, well, they were miles behind me. But you have to just get off the throttle and let them through.
That's why you shouldn't have blue flags in Formula 1.
Right, agree.
If he's putting in the same lap time, of course, but of course he's on a fresher set of tyres, Palmer, I would imagine, if he's producing similar times.
We saw him dive in the pits, didn't he, a little while ago? But
lap 33.
Yeah. So Palmer's now had notification of 1, 2, 3 blue flags. He'll be getting a drive-through if he's not careful. He has to just get out of the way, and then I guess you try and make them go off the racing line there rather than getting your own tyres dirty.
If he's holding up Ricciardo, this is wrecking Daniel Ricciardo's race, because of course Sebastian Vettel is going around, well, he's just lapped Pascal Wehrlein.
Yeah, Joe's best chance now is to let him through down the pit straight, but he mustn't risk a penalty. He's got another wave blue flag now on the computer, has Palmer.
So Ricciardo leads from Max Verstappen. It is a Red Bull 1 and 2 as it stands at the moment. Kimi Räikkönen comes third, and they've all stopped twice. Sebastian Vettel has stopped 3 times and is therefore going significantly quicker on this lap with a brand new set of tyres, the medium compound tyre that he's gone on, that he's trying to get to the end of the race.
Yeah, Ricciardo's just dropped into the 1:30s now in that traffic, and he still hasn't passed Palmer.
Yeah, 2 Renault engines, of course. One might be badged up as a different name, but it's the same engine.
I tell you something, Verstappen's lap times are very good on these tyres if he can coax them to the end, and so are Raikkonen's. That 2-stopper, if it works, looks quite nice at the moment.
But Ted, 3 seconds, or 2.3, 2.4 seconds difference in Sebastian Vettel's favour on the last lap between himself and Daniel Ricciardo.
Ricciardo's still behind Palmer.
Ted.
Yeah, Palmer's on the hard tyres. Williams just comes into the pits, but Ferrari confirmed that that was a tactical move. There was no requirement to stop Vettel, even though his tyres had only done 8 laps. So there wasn't a puncture or anything like that. That was tactical, but his tyres will be so worn out compared to Ricciardo's at the end of the race. I don't know, I just wonder if they're getting themselves second place in the bag here rather than trying to get first.
Well, Ricciardo has now passed Jolyon Palmer, and that has given Sebastian Vettel a lot more seconds in the bag than he maybe would have been expecting. We're watching Kevin Magnussen now, Jolyon Palmer's teammate. Massive lock-up down the inside on Marcus Ericsson.
Yeah, if Ricciardo pitted now for his 3rd stop, he would end up behind Vettel. He would end up behind him. Vettel now has effective track position in the lead of the race.
We're on lap 41, Martin. This is where you'd expect someone to be pitting if they're going to run the medium tyres to the end of the race. But of course, that didn't happen with the Ferrari, Sebastian Vettel. He pitted on lap 37. And it didn't happen with Max Verstappen. He pitted on lap 34, or Kimi Räikkönen on lap 35. So if he does come back out 4th, Daniel Ricciardo, at least he'll have much fresher tyres than those around him.
He's got to overtake though, hasn't he? And he's just had 2 or 3 horrible laps. He's in the 1:30s again now, as against Verstappen 28.9, Raikkonen 28.8, Vettel 28.8 effectively. So a couple of very difficult laps for Daniel Ricciardo. And that's just spinning around one more time, because I think that plays beautifully into the hands of Sebastian Vettel, who's now only 17 seconds behind him, having made his 3rd stop.
25 laps to go and all to play for here at the Spanish Grand Prix. Nico Hülkenberg retired with flames coming from the rear of his Force India. Nico Rosberg and Lewis Hamilton retired, maybe with steam coming out of the ears of both drivers after their contact and crash. Hamilton hitting Rosberg first. The stewards now deciding who of the 2 Mercedes drivers, if either, were at fault, and both taking each other out. First lap, 4th corner, and a lonesome day if you're Nico Rosberg or Lewis Hamilton. The battle for 2nd place. Verstappen and Raikkonen, with Ricciardo still continuing to lead, hovering around 1.9 seconds. Whatever happens from here on in his debut weekend for Red Bull, you know, driving at the sharp end of the grid here, the 18 years and 227-day-old Max Verstappen, not really put a foot wrong, is he?
No, he's not looking flustered at all, is he? His pace is good. Car's moving around a bit, but he's still carrying good forward speed with that. And I'm just looking at Vettel, if he can make those tyres last, just to confirm, put them on lap 37, hoping to get the 29 laps to the end. Ted?
Martin, hello. It's all right, nothing urgent. I was just thinking, if Ferrari's logic is that you can't overtake here, so that if Ricciardo's 3-stop mandates some overtaking, which of course it does, then that doesn't apply, because then Vettel is stuck behind Verstappen. And if you can't overtake here, then Vettel, who's to say Vettel can't overtake Verstappen? I mean, I know they've got a better engine. I know they're a little bit quicker in a straight line.
I'll put some numbers onto this. What you need is a lap time that is roughly 2.5 seconds quicker than the car in front to make a clean overtake possible. That's kind of the differences you're looking for here at Barcelona.
Sure, and if we're talking lap times, I agree with you. Ricciardo's lap times at the moment aren't really good enough.
By some margin, there's another 30.4 while you've been speaking, Ted. Another is just, he's not got the pace at the moment. He's now only 7 seconds clear of Verstappen, who probably doesn't have to stop again.
Sure, but Red Bull need to wait until 45 at least to give Ricciardo the really nice, juicy life of tyres so he can make amends in the final stint. So they need to hang him out a little bit longer. But then, could we see Verstappen winning this race if he can hold off Vettel?
Well, Vettel's looking favourite at the moment, but he's got to pass Raikkonen first. I don't know. I don't know whether that was a masterstroke by Ferrari or whether it was that eight lap run. I don't know, Ted. It's difficult to work. I'm not sure anybody will know yet. We'll have to just wait and see how it all shakes out.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it?
It is good.
And of course, we haven't got any team radio whatsoever to actually know what Daniel Ricciardo is saying within the cockpit of his Red Bull. Or whether the Sebastian Vettel bleep button is needed for it.
That all looks... I mean, the other thing about Ricciardo, as he pits now, he's going to lose track position now. He's really struggling on those tyres. Palmer on the hard tyres was right behind him, having had to move out of the way and be lapped. It stayed with him. That Ricciardo just had a bad few laps.
Right, so Verstappen and Raikkonen already passed. Sebastian Vettel now passed. Medium tyres going on to the end of the race here for Daniel Ricciardo. And there goes Sebastian Vettel. And this is now the gap that he is going to have to try and close down. Two Saubers going into turn one together. Marcus Ericsson loses out. He was the one that locked up. Felipe Nasser stays ahead of Ericsson. 15th for Nasser, 16th for Ericsson. Behind them comes Daniel Ricciardo, and he's going to be about 3 corners ahead, isn't he? Sebastian Vettel there. And here comes the man who was leading the race, is now 4th. Verstappen, Raikkonen, Vettel, Ricciardo, the top 4.
That was nearly contact, wasn't it? But it feels to me like Ferrari have got the upper hand here.
Yeah. Well,
marginally.
You've got 2 Ferraris now chasing down 1 Red Bull, and until Ricciardo can join the scene of that.
But he's not got those happy hour tyres that Ted was talking about we were expecting. He's just gone onto the mediums.
Romain Grosjean, meanwhile, lapping one of the Manners. I don't think that was for track position. Actually, no, it was. Grosjean ahead of Wehrlein now, 17th.
He was scampering across the gravel when we saw him last time, wasn't he? And Grosjean has made 3 stops as well. Right, let's just work this out then. Verstappen leads for the 2nd time this afternoon. Raikkonen now not quite in DRS zone, but very, very close to it. Vettel is 8 seconds behind them, and he's going to have tyres on that are 7, 8, at least 8 laps younger.
So Vettel for what, the next 10 laps is playing the patient waiting game, waiting for Verstappen's tyres to really go off, if indeed they do?
No, Verstappen was on 34, didn't he? 35 for Raikkonen, 37 for Vettel.
And 42 for Ricciardo.
Yeah.
On board with Kimi Raikkonen, who has a 2/10 advantage over Verstappen through the first sector. So you'd imagine he's now in DRS range, because it was exactly a second down the main straight. It's only a shortish straight here, but of course it just gives you that extra little boost to get you closer for the next big DRS zone.
So if Ricciardo's going to win this race, he's got to overtake some very fast drivers. He ought to have a little bit more grip, but it's not going to be anything like what we expected.
He's going to clear Vettel very quickly indeed if he's going to win this race.
And Vettel's now not quite catching Raikkonen as fast as we thought.
Well, I just wondered, is Vettel playing that patient game, just waiting, not overcooking his tyres, not overheating them by getting too close, knowing that the 2 guys in front are really going to be struggling for the last 5 laps?
Yeah. Verstappen can win this, can't he?
He's the man out in front. Do you remember in 2012, Ted, we said Pastor Maldonado could never win this race? He might be starting on pole, he might be leading the race, he'll never win it. And what happened? He did.
The Horner foot jig is back. I can tell you. Haven't seen that for a few years. Yeah, well, we'll find out. If Verstappen is as good as in defending as he is at attacking and overtaking, then he can win this race. It's a fascinating picture of that. I'm just looking across the pit wall onto the Red Bull tyre, the pit wall. But just to nick this in the race where Mercedes mess it all up, and for Red Bull to come in and nick it from under Ferrari's nose, oof, that would be a hard thing to take for the Scuderia, Crofty, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Especially with Marchioni in town.
But Verstappen can't get 32 laps out of a set of medium compound tyres.
He can defend.
Well, he doesn't have to go fast, he just has to defend in the right places. This is not a track where you're going to get attacked, Martin, from all angles at every turn.
Yeah, but we've seen when they hit the cliff, when the tyres give up on you, it looks like you're driving on ice. How intriguing. So 14 seconds covers the top four. Daniel Ricciardo coming back at the 3 now in front of him.
He's just kept Raikkonen out the DRS range beautifully on that last lap, as Verstappen as well.
It's quicker than Raikkonen and Vettel was Verstappen.
Meanwhile, the gap of 5.1 seconds. Vettel into Ricciardo, and that is Fernando Alonso out of the Spanish Grand Prix. It's another retirement for Fernando Alonso.
No power.
And for the second year running, he retires from his home Grand Prix. And those banks of fans that on 2 occasions rose to acclaim him when he won here at the Circuit of Catalonia are now looking rather mournful.
Is that going to need a virtual safety car? It's off the racing line, not really near a service entrance by the looks of it.
He stopped right by the wall that he crashed into in testing. Not last test, the year before. And this time, loss of power. Look at that, from the points to pointless as far as Fernando Alonso's afternoon goes. And a shake of the head for Eric Boulier, the racing director at McLaren. And that's a real shame. Let's have a listen now.
Right, it's very close to Peter Wally he ran into last year. I don't think they'll feel the need to safety car or virtual safety car that.
They'll just have yellow flags being waved there.
Yeah, although you could argue, well, he made it into that wall once at high speed, somebody else could do the same thing. It's well short of where we saw Hamilton skidding down the grass on the first lap.
It's a little bit shorter of where he hit that wall as well.
Yeah, it is.
To be fair. So the second year in a row, and for the third time in his Spanish Grand Prix career, Fernando Alonso is out of this race, joining Hülkenberg and Rosberg and Hamilton, the 2 front men in the championship, as retirees from this race. There is a little entrance there that they can push the car back to, which is good. So what happens now? Felipe Massa moves up into the points after starting 18th on the grid. Fernando Alonso's former teammate is now into the points. Jenson Button just behind Felipe Massa. Button's only stopped 2 times in this race. Can he go to the end of this race on the set of tyres he's got? Then comes Magnussen and Palmer, Nasser, Ericsson, Grosjean, Wehrlein and Haryanto outside of the points. Inside the points, Danny Kvyat running 9th. Esteban Gutierrez, who hasn't scored any points this season, running 8th in the lead of the 2 Haas cars. Sergio Perez, who this time 2 weeks ago put in a sterling effort, didn't he, to claim a couple of championship points in Russia, is currently getting a few more, 6 at the moment from running 7th. Then comes Carlos Sainz for what will be a super result for the Spaniard here. And the top 5 of Bottas, then Ricciardo in 4th, Vettel 3rd, Raikkonen 2nd, we're on board with him now, and Max Verstappen, who was only 0.8 of a second ahead of Kimi Raikkonen when they last crossed the line, and you can see how close they are, Martin, now.
He's in DRS, so obviously he got a big helping hand down the pit straight. Vettel's pace remains poor, relatively speaking, and Ricciardo's coming at all 3 of them. It's going to be really compressed at the end, but of course to get to this squabble, Ricciardo's going to have to clear Vettel, but can these two keep their tyres intact somehow?
At the moment, he's about 2.2 seconds, or 1.2 seconds, I should say, a lap faster than Sebastian Vettel. That's going to be a tough ask to get past. The Renault engine is much improved, but the Ferrari engine's still got a bit more grunt, and we're now going to start to see some defensive work going on for Max Verstappen.
Yeah, he's going to be very vulnerable down the pit straight. We know the Red Bull's faster through this last sector, and I think he's got amazing traction when you compare to the Mercedes of this corner. But Raikkonen is a bit slow there, but we know he'll be mighty fast by the end of the long pit straight.
Watch him go now. And let's see how he reels in Max Verstappen. Gaining, under braking, not gaining enough. But overall, he was a 1/10 of a second quicker on that last lap, Kimi Raikkonen. Then comes the problem, Martin. If he doesn't get the overtake done into turn 1, he loses downforce going through turns 2 and 3.
Verstappen using his years of experience nicely there, isn't he? Just so calm with it.
24th Grand Prix for Max Verstappen, Kimi Raikkonen's 235th Grand Prix. And of course, former Spanish Grand Prix winner, like Fernando Alonso, the only multiple Spanish Grand Prix winner on the grid this year. Which of course Verstappen will know and totally ignore it. So you look at that Red Bull wing, you think, Verstappen got DRS as well, but I can tell you he hasn't. It's not open, but he just looks it under the light. Ricciardo's now 2.2 seconds behind Sebastian Vettel and still gaining at a rate of knots on it.
I don't know which one of those four is going to win the race.
No.
I struggle to believe this pair can get a set of tyres 31 and 32 laps into this racetrack. But of course the track rubbers in as it goes through the afternoon with so many cars running on it. They always get a little further than you thought, but that's an awful long way. We've been told these medium tyres would do sort of 20-25 laps. Can they get to 32?
It's moving everywhere, the braking, so it's dangerous. Understood, Marcus. Teammates, come on.
I was going to say, that'll be his teammate then, Felipe Nasser, that Marcus Ericsson is complaining about, the scrap for 14th place. Your shot of the top four covered by the same TV image was back again there, Martin, only just, but they're separated by 11.2 seconds. The key here is that Ricciardo now only was 0.2 of a second quicker than Vettel on the previous lap, on lap 50, and Verstappen, well, he was 0.9 ahead of Kimi Raikkonen, but put in actually a better lap than Kimi Raikkonen. Sergio Marchionne, if this was a business day for him, he would have had it all sorted in his favour before now, but this is sports today. This is the gladiatorial contest. And if Kimi Raikkonen can win this race, what does that do for him in 2017 as well?
Saw the stuff I taught him last week at Fiorano is paying off, obviously.
Yeah, you didn't look frightened sat next to him at all.
No, he's not a good passenger. It's not like a guy like that would crash me in the wall, of course, but I just was a bit nervous. That's true if you saw that feature earlier on. But I don't like being in the passenger seat. But Raikkonen is in the pound seat right now because with that DRS, he's moving around midfield, but he's in the turbulent air coming off the back of that Red Bull, there's no doubt about it. But if he can just, I tell you what, it's about, can Verstappen not make a mistake as his tyres get very old indeed? Will they get through the next 14 laps? If Ricciardo can pass Vettel, he's now just 1.6 behind him. That brings him into play to win if this pair can't get to the end on their tyres.
Absolutely.
We don't know. Stay tuned.
I wouldn't like to say they're going off the cliff. They're not, but Verstappen is struggling. It's just through turn 3, and that's when Raikkonen was starting to close up, but it's very difficult to start to overtake people off the exit of turn 3. Just ask Lewis Hamilton or Nico Rosberg that particular question. There goes the DRS, but this straight isn't long enough for Kimi Raikkonen to get past. He can get close. He can almost smell the aftershave on the young 18-year-old. but he's going to have to wait for that main straight, and this is where the Red Bull seems to have better traction out of these slower corners than the Ferrari, and Verstappen could just eke out a bit more of an advantage.
You just got to stay so calm, which, you know, from this onboard shot, he is. Short shifting there to dull the wheel spin and make sure there is no wheel spin. And neat, tidy. It's going to be close at the end of the straight, but be surprised if it's close enough.
Does he look closer this time, Kimi Räikkönen? Because to the naked eye, just a little bit closer, and he is that little bit closer, but I think he needs to be within half a second as they cross the line, and if he's got half a second, that will give him the opportunity.
What that tells me is... Sorry, coughing there. What that tells me is if Max doesn't make a mistake and he can keep his tyres competitive, he won't be overtaken. He can take it out of that last chicane just enough, but it's all about not snatching a break or getting a little bit too throttle happy coming out of that final chicane. If he can keep that patience, we've seen 2 or 3 times now that Räikkönen, and it certainly can't do it on the last lap because there's not enough space to the line. So it's now about fault-free driving from Max Verstappen and hoping those tyres don't hit the cliff, as we say, where they actually basically run out of the grippy tread and goes down to the much less grippy rubber as part of the construction of the tyre.
Daniel Ricciardo now 1.3 seconds behind Sebastian Vettel. Worth mentioning Jenson Button now up to the points because Danny Kvyat pitted again. Button last pitted on lap 36. Kvyat will have much fresher tyres, and I'm just looking on the Button crosses the line now. Danny Kvyat is coming to the chicane, so that's the gap that Kvyat's got to make up to get back into the points again with 12 laps to go. Räikkönen is gaining once more. He's getting closer this time. He's about 2 car lengths behind. Needs to get rid of those car lengths, maybe be half a car length, and then he can try a dive down the inside maybe. But once again, Verstappen does it absolutely perfectly and is coping superbly well with the pressure here. His teammate is now a second behind Sebastian Vettel, the magic second that he dips below that, as he has done now, that gets you DRS, drag reduction system. Gap opens in the rear wing and you get an extra boost because there's not as much slowing the car down.
As I said again before, Ricciardo passes Vettel. His tyres are 8 laps younger. He can still win the race. He's only 9 seconds off the lead.
And Jolyon Palmer is ahead now of Kevin Magnussen as Fernando Alonso makes his way towards the media.
Get the car out of the way. It's going to cost us time. I know he thinks he's quick, but he's not.
Right, so Jenson Button, he's got Rio Haryanto ahead of him. The trouble is, Haryanto is quick in a straight line. The two Manners were topping the speed traps in qualifying. But he now needs to pay attention to the blue flags, and he's had 3 of them waved at him.
A little bit of oversteer there, but Kimi's not close enough this time, I don't think, to make any gain with that slight movement. Look at those 2 coming up behind him as well.
And look as well, Danny Kvyat, I think, is the third of that. He's been lapped, kind of wishing that he was still in the Red Bull and not in a Toro Rosso, and he could be joining into this scrap. Look, he's now just set the fastest lap of the race.
I wondered if there was signs behind as well momentarily, I think. Yeah, Kvyat then on a 1:26.9, so it tells you how much they're nursing out front as well to try to... Well, Kvyat's got a problem then. If he starts carrying on at that pace, he's going to catch Ricciardo and Vettel.
But he's perfectly entitled to overtake them if he wants to.
Yeah. And if he tried to overtake Daniel Ricciardo, it would be about as welcome as a toothache on a wet Monday morning in the team. He'll be getting fired out of that one as well.
Yeah, but he'll find himself back in GP3 by the end of the season. But the thing is, he's entitled to do it, and he will want to do it because it's his race he's trying to run, of course.
Kimi ever closer now to Verstappen. He's just got to keep it neat and tidy out there last goal. We saw the first movement of that Red Bull last time around under traction. You can see Kimi struggling in the turbulent air. Let's just see what sort of exit. It's a lovely turn through there. There's the Red Bull, and he's gone, look.
Yeah.
And did he have a little moment? Did he have to lift in that final corner?
It's
We're going to be
6/10
very close this time.
Yeah, 6/10 or just over 6/10 of a second as they cross the line. This could be a move for Raikkonen. He's going to try down the inside. He's not quite close enough. He just needs one more tenth of a second less, and he can do it. Ricciardo, meanwhile, having a look on Sebastian Vettel. And as they go through turn one, I tell you, Danny Kvyat is now right up the rear wing of Daniel Ricciardo. Now, I'm just going to, and Ricciardo is just going to have to watch here, because there's no way Kvyat is going to keep behind that Red Bull on those new soft compound tyres unless he's told to back off.
Well, they've either got to let him through lane, have a run at Vettel, or tell him to just get out of the way.
Right, so here's the strategy. Danny Kvyat,
Red Bull, I mean.
Danny Kvyat is let by and told, right, go on, get after Sebastian Vettel. Try and make it a bit cleaner than the second turn in Sochi, but go and have a go. They can't do that, can they?
Well, I guess they can walk along the pit wall and have a little word in Franz Tost shell-like. So it's Red Bull leads Ferrari, Ferrari leads Red Bull on two completely different strategies, one each of the cars, and we've got 10 laps, 11 including this one, to go.
Right.
7.3 covers the top four.
What's the gap? 7/10. He's not quite as close this time around. Might not stop him. The three behind, Vettel, Ricciardo, Kvyat. Raikkonen is a bit too close. He's going to have to try something brave, isn't he? Kvyat just dropped off a little bit. Is Ricciardo going to have a go? No, he's not. Once again, he needs to be half a second to really make a go. You could not make this up. You're either going to get the youngest winner of a Grand Prix ever, or the youngest podium sitter as it stands. He's currently heading the 36-year-old Kimi Raikkonen. I think, if my math is correct, 218 to 36, so a man double his age is currently being headed. Meanwhile, behind that, the two former teammates, Sebastian Vettel and Daniel Ricciardo, are scrapping over the final podium place, and trying to unlap himself on fresher tyres is the man that's been ousted from Red Bull and is now down in Toro Rosso because he hit Sebastian Vettel in Russia. Well, one of the reasons.
And I think he's been told, do not go and get involved in that little scrap ahead of you. He's just cautiously behind him now, isn't he? So any one of these four could still win this race.
Yeah. But do you know what? If I was Ricciardo, I'd have almost let Kvyat unlap himself. Although, to be fair,
he fancies passing the Ferrari first.
Under the old radio rules, he wouldn't have been able. He would have been able to know what the state of Kvyat's tyres are like. Now, of course, he can't ask that question. So, can he make a move on Sebastian Vettel? The gap is 6/10 of a second as they cross the line. We're on board with Kimi Raikkonen going into turn one. Raikkonen, that same 6/10 of a second behind. Just a little bit frustrating. He's got to try and find a way to get past somewhere else, isn't he?
A little bit wide in one there for Verstappen. Where does he find this calm head from at 18 years old? He's looking totally unflustered. It's a long way to take a set of Pirellis in the race. They're designed to wear out quicker than 32 laps. We've not got there yet.
Lap 34 was when Max Verstappen put these medium compound tyres on. Kimi came in on lap 35. They're both doing a stellar job on these tyres. Ricciardo lap 42 and Sebastian Vettel lap 37. They are a long way clear of Valtteri Bottas in 5th place, so they're not going to get headed by him.
And these two are catching at a half second a lap as well.
Yeah. Are they close enough for that half a second? They might be there right at the end. You never know. Raikkonen, to me, looked an awful lot closer into turn 10 than he was before. And at the top of the hill here, I wonder if this straight's not quite long enough, sadly, for Daniel Ricciardo's liking. But can he throw one down the inside of the chicane? Sebastian Vettel, I'm sure, will see him coming. Now, can he hang on to the rear wing of that Ferrari and be a lot closer going over the line? It was 6/10 of a second, it's now half a second, so we're down by a tenth. Now, does this give, with DRS assistance, Ricciardo the opportunity to fight Sebastian Vettel? He is going to go for it down into turn one. What a move! He has to go wide, sadly. Rejoins the track. He's still going to carry on the scrap, and Sebastian Vettel just hangs on and keeps that final podium spot. But that was almost utter brilliance from Daniel Ricciardo there. It sadly couldn't quite bring the car slow enough to stay on the track.
Last of the late breakers, and he kept it just about within the confines of the racetrack. It would have stuck if he could have kept some momentum, but Vettel a little bit too wise for that one, but brilliant on the brakes there from Daniel Ricciardo. Where does it leave him against the other two, though? It's playing into their hands.
What a move this could have been. And fair play to Sebastian Vettel, no contact.
That is stunning driving, because
if I don't avoid that, he's just going straight to my car. Honestly, what are we doing? Racing or pink rock?
Stop moaning.
I'm tempted to say it is Grand Prix racing, Sebastian. And you did brilliantly to keep out of the way and to fight your place and to keep it.
Stunning driving from the pair of them. That's what we want to see. I don't know how Ricciardo kept that anywhere near on the road, to be honest. I mean, there isn't really a braking zone at turn 1. There just isn't a braking zone down there worth talking about. And he still managed to, he came from a long way behind. I'll give Sebastian that, but it was under control.
Right, half a second it was again as they crossed the line. Is he going to have a go? No, not this time around. You're going from what, 200 miles an hour, Martin, to round about 90 miles an hour? Maybe 5 miles an hour, something like that. Drop down 5 gears.
And you brake past the 100-metre board. You're virtually on top of the corner before you throw the anchors out.
Vettel would have known it was coming. He'd have been looking at his mirrors, he'd have seen Ricciardo, would have been expecting down the inside, surely.
So what he's going to do now is fill his batteries up on this lap and then launch another attack next time around. But he's kind of given his game plan away a little bit there.
Romain Grosjean out of this race. He has retired. I assume driven into the pits. Yes, he's into the pits for the 4th time. He's out of this race.
Verstappen and Raikkonen then with a lot of traffic coming up. And their pace, early 130s. So they gained a second and a half while Vettel and Ricciardo were busy squabbling. And, well, now beginning to think Verstappen can do it.
Ricciardo ahead of Vettel, ahead of Fiat, who has been lapped. Ricciardo and Fiat, the last 2 Red Bull drivers to share a podium together in Hungary, of course, in 2015. Driver of the day. Who would your driver of the day be today? If he wins this race, there goes Ricciardo down the inside again, locks up. Sebastian Vettel had him covered, knew he was coming. If he wins this race, you've got to give it to Max Verstappen. And then maybe you need 2 poles, a driver of the day 20 plus and a driver of the day 20 minus.
Put Ricciardo back a bit, but he should have enough tyre underneath him to close back up again. But this has definitely let the 2 up front, unless their tyres literally fall away in the last few laps, giving them some breathing space.
0.7 of a second was the gap when they crossed the line, and is now pretty much that between Max Verstappen and Kimi Raikkonen. Max Verstappen, who would have been on Ferrari's radar a while ago, who maybe by this promotion to the Red Bull team, you know, Red Bull have stopped Max Verstappen going to Ferrari in the future. And there's the traffic keeping out of the way. Esteban Gutierrez in the Haas.
This is the critical corner for Verstappen to get good traction out of there, and he does so every time. Just gives him the breathing space. Oh, so close down to turn 1. Will Kimi launch an attack in there like Daniel Ricciardo did? Will he ever get close enough to do that?
It's just too far back, isn't he? Yeah. He needs that. It needs to be half a second as they cross the line, and that gives you half a sniff. But coming out of the final turn, as you rightly say, that it's almost like don't plant your foot down. It's the soft shoe shuffle from Max Verstappen that's not creating wheel spin.
You can hear him pick the throttle up, tickle the throttle, get some power on, short shift, and then go.
Meanwhile, Ricciardo's just dropped back a little bit further from Sebastian Vettel. So at the moment, it's 1 Red Bull driver, 2 Ferraris on the podium, but still time for all that to change around. Ted, down to you.
And the fact that Fiat has been stuck behind all of them means that it does look like Jenson Button will score the final points paying position today of 10th.
And he's gaining at the moment, Jenson Button, on Esteban Gutierrez, who had a slow lap as he had to get out of the way. And look, there goes Jenson Button down the inside of Esteban Gutierrez, and not just the 1 point on the cards, but 2 points on the cards for Jenson Button as he puts his McLaren up into 9th place. And that was Gutierrez having to keep out of the way on the previous lap, slowed it down and has allowed Button to get past. That, ladies and gentlemen, is why I would suggest blue flags are not what you should have in Formula 1.
Look at that, he's gone really wide in there, did Vettel.
Yes, he has.
Really bad lock-up of brakes into 14, and that has put Ricciardo right, but they'll both get DRS at this point, and they're going to get mixed up in the traffic when they get down there for good measure. And the Ferrari's just got too much power for the Red Bull.
Well, that was a real shame for Ricciardo there. This could be an even bigger shame as Gutierrez takes the racing line and puts his car in between the Ferrari and the Red Bull. So imagine what is being shouted out under the crash helmet of Daniel Ricciardo there, because he's lost an awful lot of time, stuck behind Esteban Gutierrez, and right behind Esteban Gutierrez, of course, is Danny Kvyat. Well, Kvyat now could absolutely rob Gutierrez of his first points finish of the season, and he does get past him, Danny Kvyat. So he is now up into the points once again.
And when Jenson Button has to get out of it to let these two through, Kvyat's got a chance then of Button's 9th place as well if he just hangs on to the tail. He's been prevented from getting in this mix by his own team, I'd imagine. But Kvyat then could end up 9th as this pair, if he can stay close, as this pair catch Jenson Button. No doubt the team will be telling Jenson big time. Only let 2 of them through.
Nervous faces down at the garages. I'm sure Red Bull, and on that occasion Ferrari. Verstappen a couple of tenths quicker than Raikkonen on lap 62. Now, as Daniel Ricciardo closes in under braking, as Sebastian Vettel's tyres starting to go, his rear starting to go. This time, will Vettel get DRS assistance? He's got Jenson Button ahead of him on the racetrack. That might just help him once again. The back markers giving Sebastian Vettel a chance, but Ricciardo is definitely closing. Is he going to go down the inside? No, Sebastian Vettel covers him off, and Ricciardo just locks up once again. 3 laps remaining in the battle for first place. 7/10 of a second between the young Dutchman Max Verstappen and the man Kimi Raikkonen, who, when he made his Grand Prix debut, Verstappen was only 3 years old. Then Sebastian Vettel heads Daniel Ricciardo, and the top 4 covered by 5.5 seconds. Such a memorable Spanish Grand Prix this, it really is. And it could be one that Max Verstappen will never, ever forget. We are getting close to the stage where he will almost sense that victory could be his. But can Kimi Raikkonen find one last way to force a way past? He's over a second behind now. DRS there for Daniel Ricciardo, but not for Sebastian Vettel.
Going to be 2 drivers out there asking, why did you 2 stop him and 3 stop me? And that's these 2.
Should they have just gone for a 2-stop race? Verstappen has made those tyres last. Ricciardo led this race for such a long time. Now faces the possibility of not even being on the podium. As round the final turn they come, 3rd and 4th once again. Raikkonen is out of DRS range from Verstappen. He might be able to breathe a little bit easier on this occasion. Can Ricciardo get into turn 1 ahead of Sebastian Vettel? No, he can't. Has his chance come and gone without one move, that he couldn't quite slow the car down and keep on the track? And Sebastian Vettel got straight on the team radio and complained about it.
And look, and
Kvyat's going to have a go down the inside.
He's thinking now about Button, isn't he? That's what he's thinking of.
In all honesty, well, he's going to go down the inside now. Ricciardo sees it coming, thinks, no, I'm not going to hold you up.
That looked like team play to me.
Yeah.
They're realising that there's another point in this for Toro Rosso.
But in all honesty, if Toro Rosso are the junior team of Red Bull, why didn't they let Kvyat pass Ricciardo when he had fresh soft tyres, really fresh soft tyres?
Is that sick? Is that sick, the Red Bull?
Is he
very slow off turn 9?
Yes, he's
puncture.
I got a picture or something. Referee is really weird.
For the 2nd time this season, after he's been leading a race, Daniel Ricciardo gets a puncture. And that is an absolute disaster from his And the sporting context for Daniel Ricciardo this afternoon. It's a mighty relief for Sebastian Vettel. Can he get back to the pits, make a stop, and get back into this race though, and hold on to that 4th place? Because Valtteri Bottas is an age away, just whether he can get back or not.
Was there any contact? Was there a little bit of contact when he went up the inside of the Ferrari down into turn 1 that just marked his tyre, damaged his tyre in some way?
There might have been. We're on the final lap though, as Ricciardo gets in for his pit stop. We're on the last lap, and it's Max Verstappen who is on his way to displacing Sebastian Vettel as the holder of the youngest winner in Formula One at Monaco. He's a man who has had to cope with running these tyres from lap 34.
All he's got to do is be down the back straight now with DRS for the Ferrari, the rear wing open, and he clears that. He's home and dry. He has. Oh, he's got a little deep in there, a little lock up, but there's nowhere to overtake now in the end, towards the end of the lap. Absolutely nowhere to overtake. Just keep it calm. Extraordinary drive from this teenager.
His dad, Jos Verstappen, stood on the podium twice in 1994, but he never stood on the top step of the podium. And this afternoon, at the Circuit de Catalunya, the sun is out, the smiles will be out. At 18 years and 227 days old, Max Verstappen wins a Formula One Grand Prix, wins the Spanish Grand Prix, and is the youngest driver ever to win a Formula One World Championship Grand Prix. He is the 10th different winner of this race in the last 10 years. And at the tender age of 18, he can go out and party like he's never partied before in this Spanish city tonight. First time a Dutchman's ever won in Formula One as well, and it is Red Bull back on the top step of the podium, beating off the challenge of Kimi Räikkönen and Sebastian Vettel. Daniel Ricciardo, back out on the racetrack, who did lead this Grand Prix for such a long time, does come home to finish ahead of Valtteri Bottas. He held on to that 4th place. Bottas finishes 5th. Carlos Sainz will come home to at least cheer up some of the home ground.
Yes! Yes! Unbelievable, Max. Unbelievable. Max Verstappen, you are a race winner. Fantastic. What a great debut. What a debut. Fantastic. Great job.
Thank you very much, Christian.
What a week it has been for Max Verstappen. Once of Toro Rosso, 7 days later, he's up at Red Bull, and he is now a race winner as well. While that's all been going on, the celebrations there. Sainz beats Perez, beats Massa over the line. And Jenson Button and Danny Kvyat were getting very close to each other.
Button held on to 9th.
Yeah, he did. Ahead of Kvyat, who comes home to take a point. And he'll look now, well, Danny Kvyat, and think, I didn't think my life could have got much more gloomy than when I was told I was going to Toro Rosso. But the bloke who's jumped into my seat has gone on to win the race.
Yeah, but he won it with style. He won it with speed and skill. I don't think anybody else can say I missed an opportunity there, because that was just a sensational performance. Hanging onto those tyres, kept his head, just didn't remotely get flustered, did he, at any point, despite Räikkönen, Vettel and others around him. What extraordinary level of maturity when he doesn't have anything to draw on.
Absolutely. Well, Verstappen ahead of Räikkönen, ahead of Vettel. And this is the first time that Red Bull have ever won a Grand Prix when Sebastian Vettel hasn't been driving for the team as well. So they finally got that unwanted stat away from them as well. There's so much to talk about after this race. But Hamilton and Rosberg, their first lap collision, opened the way for Ferrari or Red Bull to take it today. And the stewards will be looking into that crash to see who was at fault, if anybody. Carlos Sainz gets a Spanish flag to make his way back to the pits.
Sí, Carlos, sí. P6. Bravo, Chile. Bravo.
Thank you. Yeah, that's what I got a really good weekend. I knew we could do it. It was a matter of time.